Hi everyone. Welcome to the video today. If you're here, please say hello and let me know if you can hear me. Sometimes I have trouble with the headsets, so let me know if you can hear me. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, which is self-love. And I'm going to talk about the self-love and the weight loss connection. And even though oftentimes we know that loving ourselves is important, we often don't know what that means or even what to do or how to start. So I'm going to share 3 really simple and practical ways you can start to realize your own self-love starting today. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about something I see in this group a lot, and that is the connection between sugar and weight. And I'm going to share why just cutting out sugar doesn't always work and what you can do to help yourself with that as well. And that's going to be a part of, I think I'll talk about that under tip number 2. So thank you again for being here. Let me just jump in the group and make sure that my video is live. And for those of you who don't know me, Heather K. Jones is my name, and Gina and I have been working together for many, many years. We've worked on, gosh, it's hard to believe we're working on our 5th book, our 5th Skinnytaste book right now. And we have been friends for a long while, and I enjoy doing this work so much with her, and her Skinnytaste food is amazing, right? And exactly what good food should be. It's whole foods, it's good for you, it tastes good, it's not hard to cook, it's food that everyone loves to eat, and I'm thrilled to be a part of her books. Hold on really quick. And I'm an RD and a weight loss and wellness coach, and just going into the group to make sure I'm live. And I help people who struggle with the emotional aspects of food, and basically, oh good, I see myself there. Okay, basically you teach what it is you need to learn. And this is something that I need to learn in my own life. I needed to learn how to create health and how to create a healthier relationship with food with love. Because even though I work in the health field and even though I have a degree in health, for many years, I had a very destructive relationship with food. And I won't go into my whole story here, but I grew up with a father who struggled with weight. And so I took on a lot of ideas and beliefs about food and weight. And I started to binge eat, and I started to use food to distract me from the emotions in my life I didn't know how to deal with. And I just had a very dysfunctional relationship with food. And it was funny because I was working in the health world, and yet I had this really uncomfortable relationship with food. And I also, as my life went on, I'm 48 now, but by the time I was in my 20s, I had a really destructive relationship with drinking and with drugs and with a lot of different things. And so I really had to realize my own self-love in my life. And I really had to discover, and I'm still on this path, discover how to treat myself with respect and care. And when I used to hear the term self-love and self-care, I really had no idea what that meant or what that actually looked like in real life. And so that is what I'm going to share with you today, sort of the things that I have learned, the really simple things that help you to create change from a better feeling place. Because what happens for a lot of us who struggle with weight and food is that we try to create change from, hold on really quick, I'm just getting myself set up here, is that we try and create change from a place of fear and from a place of self-hate. And we believe that something is wrong with us. We believe because we've struggled with food for so long, and we've struggled with our weight for so long, and we've just struggled in life for so long, we believe that there's something wrong with us, that we need to be broken or fixed. And from a very fear-filled place, and at least for me, from a very hateful place, a place full of self-hate and a place of low self-esteem and a place of feeling like I was never good enough or thin enough or smart enough or whatever enough from a very low feeling place. I was constantly trying to force myself to change from a very hateful and very fearful place. And this really kept me stuck for a long time. And once I learned how to come back to my heart, and once I learned how to treat myself with respect and love, and once I really started to understand what was going on underneath all of the destructive things that I had going on with food and alcohol and drugs, I was able to really learn how to take care of myself and how to create a loving relationship with myself and a loving relationship with my body. And now this is the work that I share. And I think it's so important because this really isn't talked about very much when people think about changing how they eat or trying to lose weight or trying to build a healthier relationship with food. What happens is we often just focus on what we're doing on the outside. We focus on, changing how we eat or changing how much we work out. And of course, that is an important part of this. And I encourage all of you to cook Skinnytaste food and to change how you eat. But we also want to think about what's going on the inside, because how we treat ourselves and what we believe about ourselves, self-love is sort of the foundation for everything in our life, not just creating a healthy change and learning how to lose weight with a lot more ease, but it's the foundation for everything. It's the foundation for joy. It's the foundation for being able to go after our dreams. It's the foundation for everything in our life. Self-love, I believe that so much. It's like the foundation of a house, right? If you don't build a solid foundation for your house, then everything that gets built on top isn't as stable, right? It doesn't have that stable ground from which to grow. And so self-love and learning how to treat yourself with respect and learning how to create change from a loving place is a really, really powerful piece. Because when you're doing that, and you're not just choosing foods from a place of fear, and you're not just forcing yourself to do things that you think you should do, and when you're able to release the guilt and the shame that I know I carried around. I had so much guilt and shame because here I was working in the health world. I was actually working at a nonprofit health group at this time in my life. And I was supposed to be the one telling everybody else how to have a healthy life. And behind the scenes, I had these really destructive things going on. And so I had so much shame and so much guilt about my relationship with food and about things in my life. And when you struggle with food and weight for so long, we tend to carry around a lot of guilt and shame because we, again, believe that something is wrong with us and that if we weren't broken in this way, at least this is what I thought about myself, if I wasn't broken in this way, then I would be able to fix this. And once I started to understand myself, treat myself with respect, learn what it means to love myself, like really build that solid foundation for myself, then I was able to create change from a very different point of view and with a lot more ease and with a lot more awareness and consciousness, because I believe that the things that we struggle with the most, these are things that are helping us to come back to our heart. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with us. It doesn't mean that we're broken in some way. It's just like a sign from our soul that we need to learn how to take care of ourselves and that we need to come back to our heart. So I'm going to share with you a couple of simple tips that I have learned that have helped me do this in my own life. And then if anybody has any questions, hello, Angel from Ontario. If anybody else has any questions or anything that they want to share, please feel free to put your comments in the box below. I will call for questions at the very end. I think I'll be live for like another 20 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this kind of short. We'll see how that goes. And then if you have any questions you want to ask me about anything at all, food, diet, weight, any of it, feel free to ask and I will do my best to answer your questions. And the other thing I want to say is this, is that I want you to pay attention. What I'm doing here is I'm sharing my journey with you and I'm sharing the tools that have helped me and I'm sharing my perspective with you. From Japan, wow, thank you so much for tuning in. But what I'm doing is I'm sharing my perspective and my point of view with you, but I really want you to check in with yourself and take what resonates for you and what feels good for you. I want to remind you that you have all the answers and all the knowledge and all of the wisdom inside of you. I believe that so much. And so hear what I say, but really pay attention to how that feels for you and take what feels really good for you. That just means it's in alignment with your truth. And anything that doesn't feel right for you, don't worry about that. Just leave that and just take what feels right for you. Because again, you have all the knowledge and answers inside of you. All right, let me pull up my notes, and I'm going to start with the three simple ways that you can start to realize your own self-love in your life starting today. These are really simple things. So the first thing I want to talk about is, well, first I'm going to say this. What we're going to do is I'm going to make you aware, just help you raise your consciousness and become more aware of some of the ways that you don't love yourself right now. Because once you're aware, then you're going to put yourself in the powerful position of choice, because you always have a choice, right? And when you start to see the ways that you don't show up for yourself with love, then you can make the conscious choice to do that. All right, so number one, we're going to talk about thoughts. So let's talk about the thoughts that you think about yourself. Because most of us don't even know this, but most of us betray ourselves with our own thoughts all of the time, especially when we struggle with body and with weight and with food, because we often beat ourselves up. We often look at our bodies and decide that our bodies aren't good enough, that they're the wrong size, that they don't do what we want them to do, right? And we betray ourselves and we beat ourselves up and we blame ourselves. And we compare ourselves and we say things like, my body does not look good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not thin enough, I'm not good enough. In a million different ways we have to say that, right? We basically send a message to ourselves that I'm not good enough the way that I am right now. And we also shame ourselves for the choices that we make about food and for the fact that we are even here right now, right? And we really create so much disharmony within ourselves just from the thoughts that we think about ourselves. All day long, we are thinking thoughts about ourselves, and most of these thoughts we're not even truly aware of. So step number one is to just start to be aware of the thoughts that you think about yourself. Set the intention to pay attention to the thoughts that you think about yourself, to the way you speak to your body, to the things you say about this body that you have. Are these things, do you say kind things? Are you loving to yourself? Imagine that you said these things that you say to yourself to your best friend or to somebody that you love. And I'll post a powerful video below this video when I'm done that shows these two women who actually write down the thoughts that they say to themselves. They spend a few days intentionally becoming aware of the thoughts they think about themselves. And then these two friends swap the list, and they have to read the thoughts out loud to their friends so they can really fully see what they are doing to themselves, how hurtful they're being to themselves, how mean they're being to themselves. We often say things to ourselves that we wouldn't say to anybody else, right? We're often much crueler to ourselves and much harder on ourselves than we would be to anybody else. And what happens is you start to think a thought about your body or your weight or where you should be in life or how you failed in life or a mistake that you've made, and you replay that in your mind a million times and tell yourself how awful you are for making this mistake or eating this food or still not being able to lose the weight. And this builds a momentum in our lives. And this creates a really, really low feeling in our days, because if we are thinking really terrible things about ourselves all day long, how can we feel good about ourselves? And how are we going to be inspired to make choices that feel good for us, right? So it creates this sort of cycle of pain because we think these things, we say these things, we're not really aware that it's creating all this energy within us. And then we reach outside ourselves to food or to whatever that is to feel better, and we keep ourselves stuck. So just start being aware of the thoughts that you think about yourself. You can actually write them down just for one day. Just say, today I intend to pay attention to the thoughts I think about myself. And then I'm going to give you a really easy tip that I actually just learned myself not that long ago that really, really helps you become aware and really helps you to stop saying really mean and really cruel things. So when you start paying attention to your thoughts, when you start to be aware that you're saying things to yourself that are not very loving or not very kind, just stop and say those words out loud. Just say the words that you're saying to yourself, say them out loud, right? Because when you say these things out loud, it's going to be really clear to you. And again, this is what this video that I'm going to post below is going to show you as well. When you say these things out loud and they're not just these ideas in your mind, you're going to start to be aware of the impact they're having in your life. So just stop and try and say those things out loud, and it'll start to make you really aware of the impact these thoughts have in your life. And that will help you and start to inspire you to choose better feeling thoughts, to choose to treat yourself with respect, to say kind things to yourself, because we all have free will, right? We have free will, and so we can choose to think horrible things about ourselves all day long. We can berate ourselves. We can be mean to ourselves. That is our free will. That is our choice. But when you start to say these things out loud, you're going to start to see how silly it is to beat yourself up and to keep yourself stuck and to keep yourself in this low feeling place because you refuse to give yourself love, because you refuse to treat yourself with respect. Most of us talk to our pets better than we speak to ourselves. And most of us are not even aware of that. So start to be aware, start to say these things that you say to yourself out loud, and then start to choose to speak to yourself in kind ways. And this is an easy way to start to do that, because oftentimes we want the people out, people that we know to say these things to ourselves, or we want someone to come and say all these things to ourselves, just say these things to us, right? So just imagine what if you could have anybody, if you close your eyes right now, and you imagine that somebody walked up to you and told you all the things that you really wanted to hear about yourself, what would that be? If you had a parent who told you these things, and perhaps you do. I didn't have parents who said these things, but if you had someone, a friend, and what were the things that you would want to hear from them, right? Would you want to hear how proud they are of you, how much they appreciate you, how amazing you are exactly the way you are, that they believe in you and you can do anything, and that it's possible for you to change your relationship with food, and it's possible for you to lose weight. It's possible for you to create a healthy change in your life. Anything is possible for you, and I believe in you so much. Like, what are the things that you would want to hear from someone else? And instead of waiting for someone else to say those things to you, can you start saying those things to yourself? This sounds like a small thing, but it's not. It's a huge thing. So just take that in and really start to be more conscious of your thoughts. And the other thing I want to talk about is forgiving yourself for anything, hold on, my nose is itching, for how you have treated yourself up until this point, and forgiving yourself for anything that you have done up until this point, and really giving yourself a clean slate. And I'm not going to go deep into this here, but I'll put a link down below where I share a video with more on this, and I go through this in a really deep way. But really start to think about forgiving yourself for the past and showing up for yourself with love right now. And by becoming more aware of the thoughts that you think to yourself, becoming more aware of the messages that you send to yourself all day long, becoming more aware of what you say to yourself. Because if you do not believe that you are worthy of your desires, if you do not believe it's possible for you to create change, if you do not believe it's possible for you to change the way that you eat, if you do not believe that you are worthy of the desires in your life, then how are you ever going to get there? So starting to create your own self-worth, starting to remember what it is actually starting to remember that you are worthy of love and you are worthy of care. right here, right now, because we all know this at our core, right? And when you're around very young kids, they know this. They know they're worthwhile. They know they're worth love. They know that they deserve care. And somewhere inside of us, we all know that as well. So it's just bringing you back to that, which I call coming back to your heart and remembering what you already know is true. Okay, so that's step one, becoming conscious of your thoughts, saying those thoughts out loud when you find yourself being mean to yourself, when you find yourself saying anything other than love, saying those things out loud so you become aware of just how silly and hurtful that is, and then starting to speak kind words to yourself. All the things that you wish somebody else would say to you, say to yourself. Start sending those messages to yourself now. And the next thing I want to talk about, and this may seem like a funny thing to talk about because, you know, I'm doing this inside the Skinnytaste group, but this for me was huge. And so I'm going to share it with you in case this is true for you as well. Because even though I had a degree in health, and even though I worked in the nutrition and health world, for a very, very long time, I didn't consider foods and consider what would nourish my body, right? I didn't think about how to care for this body that I have. I was so concerned about weight, and I was so concerned about not gaining weight, and I was so concerned about trying to lose weight that all of my decisions about food were based on whether or not I would lose or gain weight. There was nothing to do with nourishment. There was nothing to do with actually choosing foods that would make me feel good because that's what my body needs. And you don't need a degree in nutrition to know what your body needs. We all know at this point that our bodies need more whole, real foods, which is why I love Skinnytaste so much, because she cooks with real whole foods, right? Our bodies need more fresh fruits, more fresh vegetables, more whole grains, more whole, good for your body foods. And yet for so long, my only concern was whether or not this food was going to make me gain weight. And there was nothing to do with the nourishment aspect of food. And when you make this simple mindset shift and you start taking care of your body, you know, is truly about self-love. One of the best ways that we can show up for ourselves with love is choosing foods that will make our bodies feel its best, that will treat our bodies with respect and care and love. And when you're choosing foods from a place of love, instead of choosing foods from a place of fear or guilt, or choosing the foods you think you have to eat, it really starts to change things. And so when I stopped eating for weight loss, and I started to eat for health and for love, everything started to change. And the funny thing is, the byproduct of eating for health and the byproduct of eating from a place of self-love and eating from a place of nourishment, because it's the kind thing to do, because your body actually will feel so much better when you eat greens, when you eat healthy, good for you foods, when you take the time to nourish your body with foods that it actually needs. And our bodies need the foods that grow on this incredible earth, right? Like, it's not hard. This is a very intuitive thing. All of us know this. And when you start to switch, the funny thing is the byproduct of that is that you start to lose weight, because you're starting to consider how you fuel your body from a very different place. And instead of it coming from a fearful and guilt and shame-filled place, it's coming from a space of love. And an easy way to do this, and by the way, the reasons that we don't do this, the reasons that we tend to eat from a very fearful place and not accept and love ourselves as we are right now, is because we usually have an idea that if we accept ourselves and treat ourselves with love and respect the way we are right now, then we have a fear that we're going to stay exactly the way we are right now. But just because you love and accept yourself the way you are now doesn't mean that you can't also have a desire to create a healthier body, to create a body that you feel good in, to lose the weight that doesn't serve you, right? To get back to a size that feels better to you. You can do both of those things. And in fact, when you choose not to love yourself and not to accept yourself and not to treat yourself with respect until you get to that size, That's exactly what keeps us stuck in that loop of self-hate and in that loop of pain. But when you start to show up for yourself with respect and love at the size you're at right now, then you actually create so much energy for change. It's amazing how you start to change when you start to show up for yourself, for love, and for this body that you have right here, right now. So what I want to say is this: an easy way to start to do this is two things. One thing is that when we're in fear, and if you've been struggling with food and weight for a while, you're probably making a lot of your choices from a fearful place. And so before you choose to eat or drink anything, start making it a habit for yourself to take a few deep cleansing breaths and to bring yourself fully into the consciousness of this moment right now before you choose anything at all. Because when you're choosing from a fearful, frantic place, you're not giving yourself the space that you need to choose to make a loving choice. So before you eat or drink anything, water, of course, I drink a lot of this, but before you choose to drink or eat anything, choose to come back into the moment here and now by taking a few conscious breaths. And I usually, take a deep inhale in and say, I bring myself fully to the present. And then in my mind, take a deep exhale out and I release and let everything go. And when I'm focusing on the breath going in and out of my body and I'm saying those words, it helps me to get into a clearer space right here, right now. So I do it twice. I say, I bring myself fully to the present. I release and let everything go. I bring myself fully to the present. I release and let everything go. You can just do this in your mind. And if you're out, if you're out somewhere with friends, you can just do it in your mind before you choose what you're going to eat. And this will bring you into a more conscious space. And then you can just ask yourself, is this a loving thing for me to choose? Is this a loving choice? Is it loving for me to choose this? Is it loving for my body? And this is not about restricting food or saying that you can't have certain foods, right? Because oftentimes we get into that very restrictive mode of all or nothing mode, where we sort of say, no, I'm not allowed to have this. And we take away our choice and our power, and we put these rules on ourselves because we believe that we can't control ourselves. This is about powerful choice. This is about saying, yes, I can have that. If I wanted to eat this whole bag of cookies, I could. That is my choice. And we're going to talk about the emotional aspects of food next. It's coming to the point of saying, yes, I could eat this entire bag of cookies if that's what I wanted to do. I'm at choice. But I'm choosing not to do that. I'm choosing to make a different choice for myself. I'm choosing to process the emotions that are coming up for me. Because oftentimes when we're choosing to eat a whole bag of cookies, it has nothing to do with the food and everything to do with what's going on inside of us. And if you're out somewhere and you are choosing what it is you want to eat, you might in fact choose to order something that may not be considered a healthy choice, but you're going to choose to stop eating when your body feels full, right? So it's about making conscious choices about what you eat from a place of love and saying, is this a loving choice? What does my body actually need right now? What would feel good for my body right now? What would feel fun to eat? And so it's about making a choice from a more conscious place. Does that make sense to everybody? And I'm not really paying attention to the comments right now. Angel says struggling with weight gain, sugar cravings, and perimenopause. Okay, Angel, I love your name, by the way. I will answer that when I'm done here, because I'm going to talk about the sugar next. So it's about coming into the conscious here and now and making a choice from a place of love. And if you just try this, if you just try to, by breathing, that's also a huge part of self-love, because when we're in fear, we take shallow breaths and we take them from like our chest, right? We breathe like this and we only breathe into our chest right here. But when we take conscious breaths and we breathe fully into our belly and we breathe fully into our body, our bodies naturally start to relax. And this is also really important because what happens from a physical point of view is that when you're in this overwhelmed, stressed out place and you're stressed out about your body and food all of the time, you get your body into a very, very tense and very, very stressed out fight or flight mode. And when your body is in the fight or flight mode, what happens is your body is freaked out and it literally slows down and holds onto the weight that you have to protect itself. But when you use conscious breath and you start to choose things from a place of love and you start to send yourself messages of love through the thoughts that you think and the things that you say to yourself, your body relaxes and your body goes into the rest and restore mode. And in the rest and restore mode, your body knows exactly what to do. And your body starts to release the weight that you do not need. Your body is always trying to get you back to a healthy place. Your body is on your side all of the time. But when you always stress your body out by the thoughts that you think and all the craziness you have going on with food and stuffing your emotions down with food, if that's true for you, we're going to talk about that next. When you do that, what happens is you put your body into this very stressed out fight or flight mode, and your body shuts down. But when you start to care for your body, and when you start to care for yourself, and when you start to treat yourself with love, you build that foundation in your life, and your body starts to relax. And then your body can get into the rest and restore mode. Well, it will start to naturally release the weight that you don't need. Because like I said, your body is always on your side. The same way that your body knows when you go outside, if it's cold, you start to shiver and you put on a coat. That's your body letting you know, right? It's your body taking care of you. And if it's hot outside and you go outside, your body starts to sweat to try and cool you down. Your body is always trying to keep you in good health. Your body is on your side. It's like you have billions of cells working for you all of the time. But most of us are working against our bodies and we don't even know it. But when you start to trust, again, that your body is on your side and you start to believe that your body wants to keep you in good health, same way that your body likes to keep you in a certain temperature range, and the same way that your body likes to keep you in a certain pH range, and there's all these things that your body does to keep you in a certain pH range, and there's millions of ways that our bodies work to keep us in good health. So for example, a really simple one, but it's so powerful. If you cut your hand or you cut your arm or you cut your leg, your body, all of those cells rush to heal that, right? And you form a scab and your body heals. It's a really simple way that your body is always working for you, always trying to heal you. And when you remember that and you start to trust that, you start to remember and know that your body is also trying to get you into a weight that feels better for you, into a healthy weight range. And oftentimes we have our mind set on a certain, number that we need to get at to be good enough or to feel like we've reached that point. But we have a range that our bodies feel good at. And when we start to take care of ourselves with love and start to nourish our body, nourish ourselves from a place of respect and speak to ourselves in kind ways, then we give our bodies the okay sign, like the green light, to get into that rest and restore mode and to release the weight that doesn't serve it at this time. So it's so important to know that there's a physical component to all of this inner self-care work as well. And it's oftentimes why people can, be trying to eat all the right things, working out the right way, but they find that their bodies don't respond. And it's oftentimes because their bodies are still in a very, very stressed out fight or flight mode. And when you start to consciously use your breath to bring yourself into the here and now, and you start consciously making choices from a place of love, your body starts to relax. And you'll find that you're able to release weight with a lot more ease. So that's so important. The other thing I want to mention in terms of treating your body with respect, because oftentimes what we do is we focus on all the parts of our bodies that we don't like. My thighs are too big, my arms are too big, whatever it is. We focus on the size of our bodies and the things we don't like about them, the things that make us, we have such heavy conditioning around how we should look. And what we do is we oftentimes are down on ourselves about all the things that we think we don't have or the things that don't work. And a really helpful way to start getting back into a more natural flow with this amazing body that you have is to start to appreciate all the things that are going really, really well, all the things that you oftentimes don't even think about. For example, for me, when I started to do this kind of work, I really started to appreciate my eyesight, right? Because when I started to do this work myself, I was in really bad health. I had spent years binging, eating really unhealthy foods, smoking, drinking, doing drugs. And at 31, my body was in a horribly unhealthy place. I had a hacking cough. I was sick a lot of the times, and I wasn't in very good health. And I decided to start to put my attention on the things in my body that were going really, really well. And I started to appreciate the fact that I could see, right? Like, I love to read. And so I would start to pay attention to how grateful I was that I had my eyesight and that I could read. And I started to pay attention to the fact that I could walk with the legs that I had. So there's really, really simple things of starting to put your attention on all the things that your body is doing right, and all the ways that your body is supporting you all the time, and all the things that you can appreciate right here, right now. So that is tip number 2, starting to nourish your body from a place of love and starting to treat your body with respect and love. And then tip number 3 is all about the emotional support, because if you are using food as a way to emotionally support yourself, then what happens is we try to just change the food, and we think that it's the food that's causing us all of the pain. And what I see all the time in this world is sugar, right? It's all about the sugar. Sugar is the problem here, and I'm going to cut out all the sugar in my life, and that's going to take care of it. And what happens is, if we don't give ourselves the emotional tools to support ourselves, and we cut out the sugar without understanding why we're reaching for the sugar in the first place, then it doesn't last. And or we turn to something else to distract us instead. So now we may not be eating the sugar anymore, but we find that we're drinking more, or we find that we are shopping more, or we're doing something to distract us from the fear and the emotions that we don't want to face. And so, yes, of course, we all need to eat less sugar. The processed sugar in the food world today is intense. And yes, we need to eat less of that. But if sugar is an issue for you and you find yourself always craving sugary foods, you want to start to look at what's going on underneath there. Because the reason that we crave sugar, when we have these cravings for food, I don't know anybody who craves broccoli and greens. Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. I wish I could eat some broccoli right now. No, what we crave are these sugary foods because they give us that endorphin rush, right? And we crave these processed foods as well, because there's the chemical makeup of those foods create this endorphin rush. And so we get that high. We want to feel good. We want to forget about these things that are causing us so much pain, and we just want relief. We want to feel better. And that rush that we get from the sugar does make us feel better for a very short amount of time. And then when we're done with the binge, or we've eaten the whole bag of cookies, then we have to deal with all the emotions that have come from that. So we have to deal with the guilt and the shame and, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And why can't I control my sugar cravings? It must be the sugar. I'm going to try cutting it out again. And tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow I'm going to cut it out, and I am going to be very strong, and I'm going to use all my willpower to make sure this never happens again. And the truth is, you don't need willpower. You need to learn how to emotionally support yourself, right? You need to learn how to, this is great info. I never thought of it like that before. Thank you for sharing. Oh, good. I'm glad that it helps. So let me go back to my notes, and then I'll come back to the questions next. But and absolutely you can, as you get your emotional needs met without food, then you will find that attachment to sugar starts to naturally fade. And you'll also find that you can use that to help you understand yourself more, because when you are having an intense craving for sugar, or alcohol or anything else, ice cream, chips. For me, it was more about, I used to crave a lot of chips. It was the starchy foods, right? It was the starchy, heavy foods and the chips. That's something about that crunch. Sometimes it was ice cream, sometimes it was sugar, but it's all of these, certain foods, and it tends to be the carbs, right? That give us that kind of rush. And that also, I want you to keep this in mind, and this is something I just recently talked about in my groups, that if you're sensitive, and you will know if you are, you will just naturally, you've been told that, if you're a sensitive person, and I am for sure, right? We feel a lot, we feel things in a strong way, and most likely at this point of your life, unless you've started to understand the emotions in your life, you think that's a bad thing. You believe, because you didn't learn how to emotionally support yourself as a child, and you didn't learn what your emotions meant. What we do is we start to believe that our emotions, our strong emotions, are bad, and we want to feel less. And these heavy foods that actually have a low vibration, they're low vibration foods, you feel less when you eat those kind of foods. And so if you're a sensitive person and you want to feel less, the foods and the extra weight will help you do exactly that. Does that make sense to everybody here? And you may or may not relate to that, but just start to see if that feels right to you. Or you may just be using the foods because you just are having an emotionally upset time and you don't know what to do. You don't have any tools to emotionally support yourself. So a big part of self-love, and I'm going to share a quote I actually read today on Instagram that was perfect for this. And the quote is this: allowing your feelings and accepting them without judgment is an act of self-love. Anita Morjani, and she's somebody who I just adore. So allowing your feelings and accepting them without judgment is an act of self-love. So what happens to a lot of us when we don't have the tools to emotionally support ourselves, we find that we're in a very emotionally upset place, and what we want to do is push these things away, and we just want to feel better right here, right now, and we resist the feelings big time. We think it's wrong to feel this way. We think we shouldn't be feeling this way. We think it's bad that we feel this way. We're ashamed that we feel this way. We feel out of control. We just want to feel better. But if you would take the time to literally allow yourself to feel what you feel and accept them and open your heart to them. And I'm going to give you one simple way to do this that has really helped me. And this is a practice. You're going to hear me say this, and then it may take some time of slowing down the momentum of fear by really learning how to treat yourself with love and the thoughts that you think, and starting to be more conscious of your breath and getting back into the here and now, that this will become an easier thing for you to do. But if you start to think of when you're in those really emotional places, instead of pushing that away, think of it like a young child. If a young child came up to you and she was feeling really mad or really upset or really sad, imagine if you just pushed that child away and you said, oh my God, you shouldn't feel this way at all. Go eat this. Go eat this. Ugh. And you just push that child away. That's basically what you're doing for yourself. So if you can start to love yourself through whatever comes up and just ask yourself, what does that part of me that feels so scared need to hear? And actually lie on a bed or go somewhere and put your hands on your heart and speak to yourself the way you would speak to a child who was sad or mad. And you just sort of open your heart and say, it's okay. You know, what I always say to people in my full course, I have a full course called Feel Better, Eat Better. And in my support group and in my full circle group, my inner circle group, it's so important to just accept ourselves and accept the emotions that are coming up. And when you start to see them as a child, it's almost like you observe them, right? And when you observe them, you're no longer lost in them, and you're no longer lost in the story in your head. And then you can literally put your hands on your heart and you can say, I'm feeling mad right now. I'm feeling sad right now. I'm feeling lost right now. I'm feeling really alone right now. You validate how you are feeling. You actually put a name on it. And if you don't know, then just say, I'm feeling really off right now. And that's okay. It's okay. that I feel this way. There's nothing wrong with me for feeling this way. And you just accept that you feel that way, and you start to love yourself through whatever is there. And when you start to love whatever is there and you don't make it wrong, what happens is the emotions start to dissolve, because you're no longer making it wrong and you're no longer lost in the story. And you're able to sort of process the emotions, and you're able to treat yourself with love and respect instead of just pushing them away. So let me look at the comments real quick, see if anything else has come up. And, you know, the truth is, when you try and eat the emotions away, it doesn't really do anything, because those emotions are going to have to come up and be processed eventually anyway. And learning how to emotionally support yourself if you struggle with this emotional part of food is so important, because when you lose weight, some of these emotions that you've suppressed throughout your lifetime are going to start to come up with the weight. You're going to start to feel these things. And when you're able to feel them from a non-judgmental, loving place, you can move through them very fast. And as you start to learn how to emotionally support yourself, which is a huge part of self-love, you start to feel so much more confident in your life, because you no longer feel like you have to run away from these things, and you no longer are, you know, you don't get trapped in these stories. And of course, the emotions are coming from the things that we believe about ourselves. There's a lot more to this, and I talk about this a lot more, and I'll put some links down below where I share more about this, where you can learn more about this and learn more about what your emotions mean, because our emotions, I believe, are just giving us a sign. They're letting us know when we are really believing something that's out of alignment with our personal truth. And so when you're feeling really, really sad and really, really alone, and you're believing that there's something wrong with you, and that you did something wrong, and that you are wrong, and that you are not worthwhile, that creates an emotional experience inside of yourself. And when you're able to love yourself through that, you're able to get back into an aligned place with what is true. Because when you are believing things and, you know, feeling things that are actually true, you feel better. But it's understanding how all of that works and learning how to emotionally support yourself, which is a very different thing than just trying to cut out sugar, or cut out bread, or cut out carbs, or cut out whatever it is that you struggle with. It's about understanding how to emotionally support yourself. So those are the 3 tips that I have. One is mentally supporting yourself and becoming conscious of your thoughts. 2 is about physically supporting yourself and choosing things that nourish you from a place of love, and consciously breathing and putting your attention on things in your body that work well. And then 3 is really learning how to emotionally support yourself and how to love yourself through whatever is going on, instead of denying the emotions that show up. So that's really all that I have today. And like I said, I will share some links below where you can dive into more of this and learn more about these things. Let me refresh the screen and see if there's any questions. Does anybody have any questions or anything that I can help with? Okay. I don't see, oops. Hold on, let me actually, I'm in a loop here and I'm listening to myself talk. So let me go back and see if there's any questions that came up. Okay, I don't see any questions coming up. I will wait a few minutes, because I know there's like a time delay between when I speak and when the questions actually arise. But Angel, for you, it seems very clear to me that when you start to do these things, when you start to mentally support yourself, when you start to think about physically supporting yourself from a space of love, and when you start to realize that underneath the desire for the sugar, there's something else going on, right? And you start to look within and start to ask. Another really good question to ask yourself when you are wanting to use food to push stuffs away. Jackie says, why do we make our emotions wrong? Jackie, I'm actually going to post something that I recently read about this that just spoke to me so much. But most of us, if you're an adult right now, most of us were raised by parents who didn't understand how to emotionally support themselves. And so they didn't know how to emotionally support us. And so there's this beautiful story, and the picture is a child, and the child is in a chair and she's facing the corner, right? And she's been put in timeout because she's having an emotional breakdown of some sort. And so for a lot of us in schools that we went to, and from well-meaning people in our lives, you know what I mean? Like, these are not people who meant to cause us harm, but oftentimes our teachers, our parents, the people who raise us, this is what they were taught. And so when we were having an emotional experience, we were put in timeout. We were told that it was wrong. No one taught us how to emotionally support ourselves. And instead, we took on this idea from a very young age that when we are feeling emotionally out of control, when young kids are having an emotional breakdown, it's because they're lost and confused and sad, and they don't know how to express themselves, and they don't know how to use those words, right? They don't know how to express themselves, and they're in that emotionally distraught place. And then when that is made wrong from a very young age, we get the message that it's wrong to be emotionally upset. Then that is what we take on. And so we try, you know, and then we try to push those emotions down, and we try to suppress those because we've gotten the clear message that it's bad when I'm upset, right? These are the messages that most of us get. And it's starting to change now. There's a lot more emotional awareness now than ever before. And there's a lot of beautiful teachers out there. I don't have kids, but there's a lot of beautiful teachers out there who are teaching new ways to raise kids from a more emotionally aware place. But until we learn how to emotionally support ourselves, we can't really pass it on to our kids. And so we're all doing the best that we can. Jackie, does that make sense? Angel says, stress and hormone changes are an issue for me. Okay, so this is what I was going to say before I started to answer that. A really good thing to do when you are feeling emotionally out of whack and you're wanting to reach for food or reach for sugar because you're not feeling, you know, you're either feeling stressed out or your hormones are out of balance or whatever's going on for you, is to stop, and before you take that move to reach for the food, kind of like I said, you take a breath and you can ask yourself, you know, is this a loving choice? And then you can go a step beyond that and say, what do I really want right now? What do I really want? Because we don't really want to eat until we feel sick. We don't really want to eat a pound of candy until we don't feel well, right? Like, we don't really want to eat these things that we know our body doesn't need. Intuitively, that's not what we want. What we really want is to feel better. And so start checking in with yourself and ask yourself, what do I really want? And how can I, you know, show up for myself with respect right now? Like, what would be help? You'll start to intuitively get answers from within on what you can do to support yourself, right? And that's going to be simple things like you just want someone, oftentimes you just want someone to say to you, I'm sorry you're having such a tough time. I'm sorry you're feeling so off. I'm here for you. You're not alone, right? Oftentimes just showing up for yourself, being that parent to yourself, reparenting yourself. And again, this becomes an easier thing to do when you start paying attention to your thoughts, because the momentum of fear will have slowed down a bit. If you're thinking horrible thoughts about yourself all day long and you're just in this stressed out place all day long, then the momentum is pretty strong. And then you get to that place where you want to binge or you want to just reach outside yourself. But if you're consistently sending yourself better messages and you're starting to become aware of these beliefs, and this is something I talk a lot more in my full course and in my free materials that I'll post here. When we start to become aware of these beliefs that we've picked up, and a belief is just a pattern of thought, right? It's something that we think again and again and again. And if you have a belief that it's not safe for me to feel my emotions, you start to be aware of that and you see it and you just bring it to the light and you're like, oh, that's an interesting belief. Well, I don't have to believe that anymore. I'm a choice. I get to choose what I believe about myself. And I'm going to choose to believe that it is safe for me to feel these things. And it is safe for me to love myself through these things. So it's just a matter of becoming more aware and becoming aware of the beliefs that you've taken on that don't serve you at this time and choosing to believe something else instead. And that is really the loving thing to do, because oftentimes these beliefs and these things that we continue to think about ourselves, they're running in the subconscious. And as you start to be intentional about paying attention to your thoughts and paying attention to these beliefs, then you can start to say, oh, that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to believe that anymore. And then you can put your attention, your focus, your energy on what you do want to believe and on what feels good to you, which is I have the power to take care of myself. And it's safe for me to emotionally support myself. So just start tuning in. What is it that I really want? What I want is to feel peace. Is eating this food going to actually make me feel peace? No. Then you're making a conscious choice to take care of yourself and to emotionally process and to create change with a lot more ease. Because when you're doing this, then it isn't this constant game of trying and failing and trying and failing. You start to use your issues or your challenges with food to understand yourself better, because it is like the best tool for self-love, because it's like your inner being or your higher self or whatever you want to call it is like sending out a white flag, right? So I will share some links below so you can find more information if this information calls to you or you want to learn more about creating change from the inside out, because we absolutely need to move our bodies and eat foods that are good for us. But when we do that along with this internal support, then the journey actually becomes fun and you start to understand yourself. And the beautiful thing is when you start to understand yourself and you start to understand the emotional reactions that you have, and you start to understand when you get triggered, what that means and what you can do to support yourself. And when you start to understand why you're not choosing to show up for yourself with love, everything in your life starts to change. Everything starts to change because you start to see your life through an entirely different lens. And you start to realize that you have so much more power in your life than you think. Oftentimes, when you've struggled with food and weight for a long time, you feel very powerless. You believe that even though this is how I felt, I desperately wanted to change. I desperately wanted to stop doing these harmful, destructive things in my life. And yet every time I would try, I would fail. And so I felt like I had no power. But what I didn't know is that I was trying to create change from a very hateful, disempowered place. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the information to create change from a place of love. And when you do that, you start to feel powerful in your life and you start to remember that you do have the power. You do have the power. And that's huge. So that's all I have today. Let me go ahead and grab those links and I'll put them in the comments right now. And if anybody has any other questions before I sign off. So I'm going to put the link to this. It's a free video series. Stop Self-Sabotage is what it's called. And the first video is just on the page and you can watch that. And if you want to sign up for the rest of the videos, you'll find a link on the page to do so. And in this video series, the very first video is about forgiving yourself for the past, which is such an important part of this, because if you already knew how to emotionally support yourself and how to mentally support yourself and how to eat from a place of love, you would have done that. Right? And so it really is about realizing that you can release everything that's happened in the past and really learn how to forgive yourself, which is another act of self-love. I also have something called Master the Weight Loss Mindset, which is a free 31-day challenge, which I will also include here. I might have to put these links in after we get off the phone. I actually don't get off the phone, get off this call. I don't actually have these links right at my fingertips, but I'll find them. I have an emotional eating checklist you can download. I also have a free support group where I do a lot of, stuff in there as well. And then of course I share more about my full course if you want to work with me more. So there's a lot of information, whether you choose to work with me or not, there's a lot of information that will help you to start to come back to your heart and just open you up. I have, books that I've read that have really helped me. I have all different things that I've put together to help you come back to your heart and to help you create change from a loving place. Because love is the power that will change everything. And we all know this, right? If somebody we love is having a hard time, we automatically show up for them with love for the most part, right? Like we tell them we believe in them. We tell them they can do anything. Think about somebody that you love, right? If they were having a hard time, you would show up for them with love and you would say, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I believe in you so much. You can get past this. I know anything is possible for you. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you, right? And yet we don't do that for ourselves. All right, so I've put the masterclass, the checklist. The only thing I don't have is the Master the Weight Loss Mindset, which I'll find that link and I'll put it on after I get off this call. And then I'll put a link to the Facebook group as well. But there's a lot of free information here to help you start to get back into your heart and show up for yourself with more love. And that's it. I will talk to everybody soon, or I will probably come back in here and do another video training again. And I've done one other one in this group, so I'll link to that as well. But thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up with me, and I will talk to you guys later. And now I have to figure out how to end this watch party. I think, yeah. I'm still live. Let me figure out how to actually end this live video. Thanks, everybody. Oh my gosh, I've been on for an hour. I can't believe it. I don't do that many lives in this group. I'm sure there must be like an easy way to end this video. I just can't figure out what that is. Now I'm going to try signing out of Facebook and see if that helps. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Oh, and live video. I found it. I found it. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here again.